If you've ever dreamed of the perfect ride, let me stop you right here, because some motorcycles are nothing but expensive nightmares on two wheels. They look amazing, they sound amazing, but the moment you buy them, you realize you've just set your wallet on fire. From futuristic flops that nobody asked for to so-called adventure bikes that can't even handle a dirt road, these machines prove that not every motorcycle deserves your hard-earned cash. Stick around, because we're counting down 10 bikes that failed riders completely, and you won't believe which ones made the list. I hope you don't own one of these. Let's start at number 10, the Victory Vision. On paper, the Victory Vision looked like tomorrow. Sweeping bodywork, spaceship fairing, lounge chair ergonomics, a big American V-twin meant for cross-country glide mode. But in the real world, this is the rare motorcycle that can be good at a few things and still be a bad buy for most riders. Not because it can't move, because ownership becomes the enemy. First, the brand is gone. Polaris shut down Victory in 2017. That single decision turned every Vision into an orphan overnight. Dealers disappeared. Factory accessories dried up. Warranty support? History. You can still source basics, filters, pads, tires, but the Vision's unique body panels, windscreen mechanisms, dash trim, latches, and lighting are not walk into any shop and grab one items. If you tip it over in a parking lot and with a bike this big and heavy, tip-overs happen. The repair can turn from minor scuff into months of scavenger hunt. That's real-world inconvenience. Second, the styling. You either love it or you hide it in the garage. Those flowing plastics and that bulbous rear make people stare, some in awe, many in confusion. Polarizing looks crush resale value. A touring bike should be easy to move on when life changes. The Vision? You're waiting for the one buyer who wants a rolling concept bike. Meanwhile, your money sits. Third, the mass. The Vision is monumental. Low-speed turns, U-turns, sloped driveways. Everything asks for commitment. Once rolling, it's stable and comfy. But in traffic, in tight towns, or when backing into a space, you feel every pound. A touring motorcycle should make miles easy. The Vision can make maneuvering feel like an event, and that event can get expensive if gravity wins. Fourth, heat and ergos. That big twin lives under a lot of plastic. On warm days, heat soaks the cockpit. The wide bodywork can trap warm air around your thighs and shins. Add in a seat that some riders find too scooped, locking you in one posture, and you get fatigue on days that should feel effortless. Touring comfort isn't just a plush seat, it's the ability to move around as the hours pass. Fifth, storage shape and fuss. Yes, the saddlebags are big, but the odded shapes mean some luggage that fits a Goldwing or Road Glide won't fit neatly here. The latches and hinges are very Vision specific. If one breaks, welcome back to the scavenger hunt. It's death by 1,000 little quirks, not catastrophic, just wearing. Sixth, aftermarket and community. With major touring platforms, you get oceans of windshields, seats, bars, racks, lights. With the Vision, the pool is a puddle. You can make it yours, but you'll spend more time looking than riding. And when you want advice, the Tribe exists, but it's smaller, older, and shrinking. That matters when you need how-to help on a Saturday night before a Sunday trip. Now the money part. When new, a Vision or Vision Tour often stickered around $20,000 to nearly $30,000, depending on year and trim. Today, used examples commonly list around $5,000 to $10,000, with pristine, low-mile bikes sometimes asking closer to $12,000. Sounds like a bargain until you factor in parts scarcity, polarizing demand, and repair risk. A single cosmetic mishap can erase the deal. Insurance underwriters also know the brand is gone. Claims can get messy. Is the engine itself durable? Absolutely. Many owners praise the torque, smoothness, and highway lope. That's what makes the Vision so frustrating. The ride can be nice, but the ownership costs patience. You're not just buying a motorcycle, you're signing up for the project management of a discontinued, concept-looking tourer with bespoke plastic wrapped around everything you might need to touch. If you crave attention, love answering gas station questions, and don't mind hunting for trim pieces like rare vinyl, the Vision can be your oddball trophy. For everyone else who wants simple, supported, and resale-friendly, your money works harder somewhere else. And speaking of heartbreaks, next up is a bike with champagne. Looks and paper-thin patience. A bike that proves hand-built magic can also mean hand-built headaches. At number 9, Harley-Davidson Street 500 and Street 750. All right, let's tear into the Harley-Davidson Street 500 and Street 750. These were supposed to be Harley's gateway bikes, affordable machines for new riders and city commuters. Instead, they turned into one of the biggest embarrassments in Harley's modern lineup. Why? Because everything about them screamed cheap experiment, not legendary Harley. First off, the build quality. Anyone who's been around Harley knows the name carries an aura of premium metal, heavy chrome, and a thunderous V-twin heartbeat. The street models? They felt like someone tried to cut corners at every turn. The paint chipped, welds looked sloppy, switches felt toy-like, and the finish just wasn't up to Harley standards. Sit on one, and it didn't feel like a Harley. It felt like a generic import bike with a Harley badge glued on. The 500 and 750 were weak in all the wrong ways. The 500cc version especially was gutless. It couldn't keep up with freeway traffic without feeling like it was screaming for mercy. The 750 had more grunt, sure, but it was plagued with heat issues. Riders constantly complained about how the engine roasted their legs in city traffic, not exactly what you want in an urban commuter. And let's talk about price. When new, the Street 500 started at around $6,500, and the Street 750 sat closer to $7,500. That sounds affordable for a Harley, right? But the problem was value. For that same money, riders could pick up a used Harley Sportster, a bike with soul history and resale value. Or they could buy Japanese middleweights like the Yamaha MT-07, which absolutely destroyed the Street in reliability, performance, and finish. On the used market today, you'll see Street 500s and 750s for as low as $3,000, and sometimes even less. That sounds tempting, but it's a red flag. Bikes don't plummet in value like that unless the market rejects them, and riders did. Dealerships had trouble moving them even when they were new, and the resale crash just confirmed their reputation as Harley's biggest flop. Harley themselves eventually abandoned the Street lineup. Production quietly fizzled out, and today it's almost like Harley wants to pretend these bikes never existed. That should tell you everything. When the company that made it won't stand behind it, why should you? Here's the painful truth. Harley tried to make an entry-level global bike, and instead, they made something that appealed to no one. Traditional Harley riders didn't want it because it lacked the signature feel. New riders didn't want it because for the money, there were far better options. And now, the Street Series has gone down as a cautionary tale in motorcycle history. So if you see one of these cheap street models sitting in a garage sale or online listing, looking like a steal, remember this: there's a reason it's collecting dust. And the next bike on our list proves that being cheap and lightweight doesn't always make something a better buy either. Number 8. Suzuki B-King The Suzuki B-King arrived like a meteor from another dimension. A naked beast, all muscle, all attitude, with the heart of a Hayabusa pumping through its veins. On paper, it screamed power, speed, and pure insanity. A 1,300cc inline 4 engine producing nearly 180 horsepower meant this bike could blow past almost anything on two wheels. The styling was aggressive, futuristic, and intimidating. The kind of machine that made you feel like a hero just rolling out of the garage. But the reality? This is one of the best examples of a bike that looks amazing, but is a headache for any rider brave enough to own it. Let's start with ergonomics. The B-King seat sits high, almost aggressively perched on the monstrous frame. Handlebar positioning? Wide, yes, but stiff, forcing your arms into a position that is fatiguing after even a short city ride. The bike's sheer mass makes it unwieldy at low speeds, turning tight corners and parking lot maneuvers into a lesson in humility. The naked styling means there's zero wind protection. At anything over 50 miles per hour, your chest and face are constantly being blasted. A Hayabusa has fairings to channel the air. The B-King just says, deal with it. The ride itself is hardcore. That engine is brutal. Torque everywhere, screaming down the throttle like a cannon. But that's exactly the problem. There's no forgiveness for casual riding. Stoplights? Launching the bike requires focus. City streets? One throttle twitch too hard, and you feel like you're in a straight-line drag race with no escape. Add a stiff suspension tuned more for look impressive than absorb bumps, and you quickly realize this bike was built for looks and raw numbers, not practical daily use. Maintenance is another nightmare. Yes, the engine is derived from the Hayabusa, so it's mechanically sound, but the B-King's frame, bodywork, and exotic components are unique. Drop it once, and replacing parts becomes a scavenger hunt. Even cosmetic fixes cost more than some mid-range bikes because the panels and accessories are bespoke. No cheap off-the-shelf swaps here. This is not a bike you want to ride without a stash of cash and a willingness to DIY. Brand new B-Kings were around $12,000 to $15,000 depending on year and market. Used models hover between $6,000 to $9,000, sometimes higher for rare colorways. That's a lot for a bike that delivers insane power but demands constant attention, caution, and a careful wallet. For the same money, riders could buy a Hayabusa, a Triumph Speed Triple, or other naked bikes with more comfort, reliability, and resale value. In short, the Suzuki B-King is a beast. It looks like a missile, it sounds like a roar from the gods, and it turns heads like no other. But it's also a bike that punishes the unprepared, drains your wallet, and gives zero room for mistakes. If your goal is excitement over sense, raw aggression over comfort, and to feel like a legend for a short ride, the B-King delivers. But for practical, stress-free ownership, this is a masterclass in form over function. So if you're enjoying this wild countdown of motorcycle failures, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more insane motorcycle content. Number 7. Ducati Streetfighter 1098. This Ducati arrived like an Italian rocket, sharp, aggressive, and dripping with sex appeal. From the moment you see it, your eyes are glued to the exposed tank, sculpted frame, and wide handlebars. It's the kind of bike that promises adrenaline, the kind that makes your heart pound at the stoplight. But here's the catch. Behind all that style lies a bike that's as frustrating as it is beautiful, and unless you're ready to fight it. Let's start with ergonomics. Ducati wanted you to feel like a street warlord, perched high and leaning forward over the tank. For short bursts, exhilarating. For anything longer than 20 minutes, torture. The seat is narrow, firm, and unforgiving. Your wrists and back start to scream, especially in stop-and-go traffic. Touring comfort? Forget it. Two-up riding? Only if your passenger loves a fight with the exposed frame and rear seat. Now, let's talk about the engine. Yes, the 1098cc L-twin produces thunderous power. Acceleration is jaw-dropping. Mid-range torque makes you feel unstoppable. And the sound, oh, the sound, is like a full-throttle opera. But here's the irony. This very engine demands precision, attention, and constant maintenance. Drop oil intervals, ignore belt replacements, or neglect the cooling system, and suddenly that roar turns into a costly repair nightmare. Parts are expensive. Labor is expensive. Even a cosmetic scratch can bleed hundreds of dollars before you know it. Let's not forget quality control. Early Streetfighter 1098 suffered from electrical quirks, finicky electronics, and occasional build inconsistencies. That means every ride carries a little gamble. Will it start smoothly today? Will the dash behave? Will the lights work consistently? Owning one requires a mix of deep pockets, patience, and faith. A new Streetfighter 1098 hit around $12,000 to $15,000. Used examples today range from $7,000 to $10,000, often higher for rare colorways. For that money, you could get a fully equipped superbike that's easier to live with day to day and still have cash left for gear or maintenance. In short, the Ducati Streetfighter 1098 is a machine of contrasts, breathtaking beauty, brutal performance, and high-maintenance headaches. It's a bike for those who live for style and sound, willing to sacrifice comfort, convenience, and practicality. And for the everyday rider, the next bike is a warning. All that sexy Italian design comes with a steep price, literally and figuratively. Number 6. Ducati Panigale V4. This Ducati V4 is a monster in every sense. On paper, it's a superbike dream, a sleek Italian missile built for track domination, a 1000cc V4 engine churning out nearly 200 horsepower, and electronics that read like a spaceship manual. But here's the brutal truth. The Panigale V4 is the kind of bike that can make your wallet bleed, your blood pressure spike, and your patience melt. It's a masterclass in what happens when style, tech, and performance take precedence over practicality, reliability, and common sense. Let's talk about comfort, or rather, the complete lack of it. The Panigale V4 is built for one thing: speed. Every inch of its geometry screams track-only aggression. Your feet are shoved high, your knees are practically welded to the tank, your elbows are pitched forward, and your neck is craned in a way that works perfectly for carving up Mugello at 150 miles per hour. But try that posture in a slow-moving city or on a long, hot highway, and it feels like your spine is being rearranged by a medieval torture device. That firm, narrow seat may look like it belongs on a MotoGP machine, but after just 1 hour of riding, most riders are squirming and begging for relief. And two-up riding? Forget it. The so-called passenger seat is nothing more than a tiny pad glued onto the back, an afterthought so uncomfortable it might as well come with a disclaimer. Warning, not for human use. And then there's the tech. Oh, the never-ending tech. Riding modes, traction control, wheelie control, slide control, cornering ABS, launch control, quick shifter. The Panigale comes loaded with electronic wizardry that looks incredible on a spec sheet. But here's the problem. Every single one of those features is a potential point of failure. One bad sensor, one corrupted module, and your six-figure motorcycle suddenly turns into a very expensive paperweight. Forget trying to troubleshoot anything yourself. This is not a garage-friendly motorcycle. The Panigale demands dealer diagnosis, specialized tools, and a technician who speaks fluent Ducati ECU. And guess what? Every trip to the dealer means another round of wallet pain. Regular service is eye-watering. Tires wear down ridiculously fast thanks to that insane power, and every upgrade, every recalibration, every small fix costs more than what most riders spend on a year's worth of riding. The Ducati Panigale V4 is in stratospheric territory. A brand new base model starts at around $20,000, and the higher spec models like the S and R versions can climb into the $25,000 to $30,000 range without breaking a sweat. Even used examples, often several years old, still fetch $15,000 to $20,000. And those numbers don't include the inevitable servicing bills, ECU updates, suspension tuning, and the never-ending cycle of consumables that this bike chews through. Now, credit where credit is due. The Panigale V4 is visually stunning. It's one of the most beautiful motorcycles ever built. The sharp lines, the aerodynamic curves, the underbelly exhaust, it's pure Italian art on wheels. Park it anywhere and heads will turn. Twist the throttle on a winding back road and the sound of that V4 engine will make your heart race. For riders chasing pure adrenaline, nothing compares. On the track, this bike is untouchable, capable of embarrassing nearly anything else on two wheels. The verdict? The Ducati Panigale V4 is a bike for the few, not the many. If you want a track weapon that doubles as a garage showpiece, this is it. But if you value comfort, reliability, and rider friendliness, there are dozens of better, cheaper, and more enjoyable options. It's a bike that makes your heart soar, but your wallet scream. Number 5. Moto Guzzi V9. The Moto Guzzi V9 looks like the perfect blend of classic Italian styling and modern cruiser convenience. A low, laid-back seat, swooping lines, and that unmistakable longitudinal V-twin engine proudly mounted across the frame. On paper, it promises any effortless cruising, style, and a relaxed ride. In reality, it's a bike that can make you question every dollar you spent, every mile you rode, and every expectation you had about what a cruiser should be. So, the ergonomics. The V9 is low-slung, yes, but the pegs are surprisingly high, and the handlebars require you to lean slightly forward. It's casual in appearance, but longer rides quickly reveal that your back, shoulders, and wrists are working harder than they should. The seat looks wide and comfortable, but it lacks the cushioning to support extended trips. Two-up riding is possible, but the passenger seat is narrow and firm, giving them an uncomfortable experience. The engine itself is the famous 8300cc longitudinal V-twin, a Moto Guzzi signature. It has character, torque is plentiful, the thump is iconic, and it sounds beautiful at low revs. But this is also a slow-revving, singularly Italian engine. It's not going to win any drag races, and its performance in traffic can feel lagging compared to Japanese or American counterparts. The gearbox is smooth when new, but some owners report clutch heat, slight vibration, and gear noise. After a few thousand miles, small annoyances that add up. Maintenance is where the V9 shows its true colors. Moto Guzzi parts are not exactly cheap, and while the engine is durable, servicing the longitudinal crank, belts, and unique electronics requires either dealer support or a mechanic familiar with European cruisers. That means labor costs can sneak up, especially if you try to DIY. A drop bike or even minor cosmetic scratches can be expensive to fix because of uniquely shaped body panels and exposed components. Brand new V9s range from around $9,000 to $11,000, depending on trim, while used examples sit around $6,000 to $8,000. That's a solid investment for a bike that looks incredible, but it carries a hidden cost in comfort, practicality, and parts accessibility. In short, the Moto Guzzi V9 is a bike for riders who prioritize style, sound, and presence over comfort and practicality. It's beautiful, unmistakable, and has that classic Italian soul. For the bike coming up next, everyday ownership can be an ongoing challenge, a slow burn of quirks, minor annoyances, and wallet hits that can frustrate even experienced cruisers. Number 4. Royal Enfield Himalayan. The Royal Enfield Himalayan first generation arrived as the answer to the call of adventure. On paper, it was everything riders dreamed of. Rugged looks, upright ergonomics, a long travel suspension, and that singular 400cc thumper engine ready to take you from city streets to mountain trails. It's the kind of bike that inspires imagination. You can almost hear yourself riding through remote passes, kicking up dust, and feeling like a true explorer. But reality? Owning the Himalayan is like signing up for a lifetime of charming frustration. First, comfort and handling. The Himalayan seat is broad and upright, perfect for tall riders, but it lacks the cushioning for long-distance touring. After just a couple of hours, your lower back starts to protest. Suspension is long travel, yes, but it's soft and imprecise, which means city corners feel sloppy and high-speed stability is a worry. Two-up riding is possible, but the passenger seat is flat and gives no lateral support, making long trips a test of patience. Now, let's talk engine. The Himalayan's 410cc air-cooled single is simple, lightweight, and easy to fix, all positives. But here's the downside. It's painfully underpowered. Climbing steep trails or overtaking on highways feels like fighting with the bike, and it struggles to maintain freeway speeds. Enthusiasts call it reliable but sluggish, a bike that tests your patience more than your skill. If you imagine highway adventures, this is not the bike you want. Maintenance is straightforward. Royal Enfield. Designed the Himalayan for simplicity, but it's not foolproof. First-generation models had electrical quirks, vibration issues, and build inconsistencies, meaning even routine rides could come with small annoyances. Parts are cheap and accessible in India, but in other markets, sourcing replacements can take time and cost more than expected. The Himalayan originally sold around $4,000 to $5,000, and used models now hover between $2,000 to $3,000. Affordable? Sure. Practical? Only if your expectations are tempered. Adventure seekers might forgive the sluggish performance for rugged style, but city commuters or highway travelers often regret it. In short, the Royal Enfield Himalayan First Gen is a bike that looks like adventure but delivers frustration. It's charming, iconic, and simple, but not forgiving for those who demand speed, precision, or high-speed comfort. It's a love it or hate it bike, best suited for patient explorers who embrace every quirk. If you're enjoying this countdown of motorcycles that promise more than they deliver, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and click the next video. Next, we're going into the top 3. And there is only one question that should be running through your mind. Care to drop it in the comment section? Are you ready? Number 3. Kawasaki Ninja 250R. This Kawasaki Ninja. Carb models have long been celebrated as the perfect starter bike. They're light, nimble, and affordable, a gateway drug for new riders. But here's the reality. While it looks like a sensible, easy ride, the carbureted Ninjas are a masterclass in underachievement disguised as fun. These bikes can quickly become more frustrating than educational, especially for those who think they're buying a legendary sport bike experience. First, let's talk power. The 250cc parallel twin carb engine is simple and light, yes, but it struggles to maintain highway speeds. Overtaking a car on the freeway becomes a game of timing, where hesitation can feel dangerous. The bike is perfect for city streets, but any dream of long-haul adventure? Forget it. Riders often describe the top end as flat and uninspired, leaving you wishing for even just a little more torque to escape traffic or climb hills confidently. Ergonomics are decent, but not ideal. The upright seating position and narrow seat seem comfortable at first, but the vibration from the carb engine after an hour or two starts to nudge your wrists, back, and thighs. Two-up riding is possible, but the passenger seat is narrow, firm, and leaves your friend questioning why they signed up for the ride. Maintenance is another surprise. Carburetors are cheap and mechanic-friendly, but they require regular tuning. Ignoring them leads to poor performance, stuttering, and misfires. Suddenly, that easy-to-ride beginner bike demands attention, patience, and mechanical know-how. Parts are generally affordable, but sourcing carb-specific components for older models can be a headache, especially outside major cities. A used carb Ninja 250Rs usually sit between $2,000 to $3,000, sometimes higher for well-maintained examples. Brand new EFI versions solve some of these frustrations, but the carb models remain a cautionary tale. Cheap, lightweight, and approachable, but ultimately limited, underpowered, and a frustration machine for riders expecting more from a sport bike. In short, the Kawasaki Ninja 250R carb models are charming on paper, but limited in every way that matters. Power, comfort, and long-term enjoyment. They're a classic beginner trap, easy to admire, hard to love for more than a few years. 2. Ducati Multistrada 1200, early generations. This early versions of the Multistrada arrived with a promise. A do-it-all adventure machine that could handle highway cruising, tackle back roads, and serve as a touring hero. On paper, it seemed perfect. In reality, these early Multistradas quickly earned a reputation as beautiful but blood-sucking nightmares. Every ride comes with a subtle whisper, style and performance at the cost of reliability. Let's start with the engine. The 1200cc L twin is powerful, smooth, and intoxicating when new. Torque, plentiful. Sound, pure Italian sexiness. But these early models were notorious for electrical gremlins, sensors failing mid-ride, and complex diagnostics. One misbehaving throttle-by-wire sensor or ABS module could leave you stranded on the roadside, wondering why you thought owning a Ducati would be easy. Ergonomics and comfort. Initially, the Multistrada looks like the perfect adventure bike. Upright seating, adjustable windscreen, and long travel suspension are all there. But early models often had harsh, inconsistent suspension that could beat the rider up on rougher roads. The seat looks spacious, but prolonged hours leave both rider and passenger fatigued. Two-up touring is possible, yes, but preparation and patience are mandatory. Maintenance costs are legendary. Parts are expensive, labor is high, and every service interval seems to require a weekend in the garage or a trip to the dealer. The bike is a masterpiece of Italian engineering, but it demands constant attention. Ignore it for a few thousand miles, and small issues snowball into expensive repairs. Used early Multistradas range from $6,000 to $9,000, while brand new examples launched around $12,000 to $14,000. That's a hefty sum for a bike that looks perfect, but can turn every ride into a game of will it start today? In short, the Ducati Multistrada 1200 Early Gens is a bike that shows off Italian style, performance, and character, but it also tests your patience, wallet, and nerves. Perfect for die-hard enthusiasts who love challenges, but anyone seeking a reliable adventure machine should think twice. 1. Suzuki TL1000R, the V-twin sport bike. The Suzuki TL1000R burst onto the scene in the late 90s with a simple mission. Combine the throbbing torque of a V-twin with the handling and agility of a supersport. On paper, it looked like the best of both worlds: raw power, exotic Italian-inspired styling, and a sound that made your heart skip. In reality, the TL1000R is a masterclass in style over substance, a bike that often leaves riders loving the looks but hating the experience. Let's start with the engine. The 90-degree V-twin is loud, torquey, and absolutely intoxicating in short bursts. That low-end pull makes wheelies tempting, and highway blasts feel like you're strapped to a missile. But here's the catch. The TL1000R has serious front end and chassis issues. The bike can feel wobbly at high speeds, and the V-twin torque delivery, while fun, creates a handling quirk that can catch inexperienced or even seasoned riders off guard. Ergonomics? Aggressively sporty. Clip-ons are low, seat is high, and long rides quickly turn into torture for wrists, back, and neck. The seating position is perfect for track sprints, but miserable for anything resembling relaxed riding or commuting. Two-up riding is barely practical. Passenger comfort is almost non-existent, leaving friends or partners questioning why they agreed to climb aboard. Maintenance and reliability are where the TL1000R really tests your patience. Chain adjustment, tension issues, and cam chain noise plague early models, while cooling and electronic quirks can strike at the worst possible time. Parts are expensive, specialized tools may be required, and finding a mechanic familiar with the quirks of this specific V-twin isn't always easy. These bikes originally sold around $10,000 to $11,000, and used models today fetch $4,000 to $6,000, often with mileage and condition as a major consideration. That's a lot of cash for a bike that can be more frustration than fun on anything beyond short, spirited rides. In short, the Suzuki TL1000R is a bike that looks and sounds amazing, but demands patience, mechanical knowledge, and a willingness to endure quirks for every mile of joy. It's for riders who love challenges, not comfort or reliability. And there you have it, the motorcycles that promise the world but deliver nothing but headaches. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the bikes you should avoid at all costs, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more insane motorcycle content, and click the next video to see even more jaw-dropping reviews you won't believe exist. Don't miss out, your next ride might just thank you.